Hello, Sam from Sound on Sound magazine here at Superbooth in Berlin. And with me here is Chris from Novation.
Hey.
We are standing in front of a summit. Hello,
We
Chris.
certainly are. We're standing in front of our brand new products. Very exciting here today, first day of Superbooth. And yep, we have our Novation Summit Synth with us.
So tell us, what is a Novation Summit?
Novation Summit, right, okay, well, it's a synthesizer. It's a 16-voice synthesizer. It's effectively based on the Peak synthesizer engine, but we've put it into a really nice 61-note keyboard as well. Lots of top panel control, lots of the same kind of high-quality FPGA-generated Oxford oscillators that we have in there as well. But actually, we've got two Peaks essentially inside there. We have two sets of synth engines, two sets of effects, two arpeggiators, which is a lot of fun to play with as well, and some nice new tweaks as well to the design. So, for example, the filters have undergone a bit of a rethink, I guess. You know, we've now put a system in there where we can split the two filters, split it into two filters, into a dual filter system, and also we've added a lot of nice top panel controls as well to add a bit of extra dimension and depth to the sound design when you're working on it.
So this is really a sort of performance instrument based on the Peak.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, you know, the fact it has a keyboard there initially is a great sort of factor in turning it into a performance instrument. It's really a player's instrument as well. The keyboard just feels really, really nice. And yeah, you've got all the sort of controls in front of you. Yeah, it's a joy to play, to be perfectly honest. It really is. But again, equally, if you're into the sequencing side of things, there's enough power in there and enough synthesis in there to be able to, you know, really take it into new uncharted territory with the synthesizer as well.
So you can treat the two synth engines as being completely independent, or you can layer them?
Absolutely, yeah. In fact, we've got quite a nice management system to be able to do that. Effectively, you know, we have single patches in which we can access all 16 voices. Then if we go into a multi-mode, then we split it into two 8-voice synthesizers at that point. And you're quite right, we can use it as either layered to layer the patches on top of each other. We can use it again from a performance point of view with a split point on the keyboard. So, you know, the old thing of bass down there, leads up at the top, that sort of thing. That's perfectly fine as well. But then we have a really nice dual mode, and that really kind of splits into two separate discrete synthesizers, which can be addressed via MIDI, of course, or, you know, even via the keyboard as well. You can just quickly tap part A, play part A, quickly tap part B, play part B, sound design on part B. Very simple and easy to use.
And compared to the Peak, there's a few tweaks to the sound as well, I gather.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, there's a couple of things that I think kind of really sort of set it apart from the Peak, you know. It's the same core technology inside there. It's the same Oxford oscillators, FPGA-based, really high quality, high resolution digital oscillators, but, you know, being written by the processor at something like 24 megahertz, is 24 million times a second, as they're drawing the NCOs, the numerically controlled oscillators. But equally, we've added sort of top panel control for the FM side on here. Whereas previously on the Peak, I should say, you can access FM, that's always been there, but you need to go into the Modulation Matrix to kind of set that up. Just by the virtue of putting the pots on the top panel for that really opens up the FM side of the instrument. And so, yeah, that's one aspect I think that really helps with the sound design. I mean, it exists on Peak, but the fact that now it's controllable from the top panel makes a big difference. But equally, as I say, we've got a new filter design in there, so that really can open up a lot of possibilities. So, for example, the way that the filter in the Peak works is a state variable, so high pass, low pass, band pass, and it's 24 dB per octave or 12 dB per octave. You know, you've got your switches there to do that. On the Summit, we have now got a new switch, which I think is labelled more on this one, but actually I think on the final unit will be labelled dual. And effectively what's happening there is, well, there are two 12 dB filters inside the synthesizer. When they're summed together and they're both low pass, then that's the 24 dB filter. But Chris Huggett, our designer for the synthesizer, felt that he really wanted to kind of do the thing which he actually did on the Oscar back in the early 80s, where you can actually separate those two filters and they become independent filters. But instead of being truly sort of fully independent moving around themselves, what we have is a really nice separation a separation control, I should say. And effectively what this is doing is really sort of pushing the cutoff sort of value apart from each other, and it's offsetting. And then when you use the cutoff control, that's going to move those together, if you like. And so, yeah, so the filter in there is still low pass, band pass, high pass, 24 dB, 12 dB, but equally we've got, I think, 9 different filter configurations in there with series, low pass into high pass into band pass, a whole variety of different structures there, but equally parallel as well. So you can go into 2 low pass and kind of, and split it out. And this really just gives a lot of sound design possibilities. And, if you start getting into resonant peaks, you start to get nice form anti-sounds and that sort of thing. So the filters is, it's based on the original filter that we've got, but we've just done some very clever things to the structure of that.
So on the one hand, it's like really hands-on and you can get stuck in straight away, but on the other hand, it is super deep if you really want to get into the editing.
Yeah, if you're familiar with the Peak, you'll know that that's a very, very deep instrument. It can do a lot of things. It's primarily a subtractive synth, but there's FM in there. There's, we've now got 70 wavetables in the instrument as well. And of course, the fact you've got the wavetables and the FM, you can do some quite interesting things with that sort of stuff as well. But equally now with the filter being able to be sort of split apart, you can just go into completely new realms with the instrument. So I'd say it's definitely a synth person's synth. It is deep. It does a lot of things. And one thing I should mention as well, of course, is the modulation matrix is still it's still there in the Summit, of course, like Peak. There's 16 slots in there. It effectively turns it into a modular synth, but with virtual cables instead of patch cables. So yeah, it's a very deep instrument. Yeah.
Yeah, and you've got stereo audio ins as well as an extra outputs now.
Indeed. Well, that's it. So we've got a stereo in, so left, right in, and we've got main outputs and also a secondary set of outputs. This is really useful if you're doing live work and that sort of thing. If you're working in the dual mode, perhaps you're treating the 2 synths separately, then of course you've got independent level control on your mixer, that sort of thing, but also within the unit as well. But yeah, so we've got 4 sets, 4 outputs on the back. What's quite nice is, of course, with the audio inputs, sure, it's going to work as an effects processor as well. We've got some incredibly great sounding effects in here, especially the reverb is a particular highlight for me on the instrument. But the fact that we have the audio input means that we can go pre-filter, so it comes in as a voice, or we can go post-filter and then just use it as an effects processor. But we have 2 separate engines in there, so we can do it twice. So we can actually run the audio through both Part A's filter and Part B's filter, Part A's effects, Part B's effects, whatever you really want to do, it's just really open-ended. So yeah, it's a pretty powerful audio processor as well as being, sort of just attached to a really great synth, so yeah.
Wow, and how soon is it going to be available?
This should be in the stores around September time, so we're working hard at the moment. We're in a good place at the moment, but there's a little bit of work to do. And it's going to be hitting the stores, it's September, I think, when we'll start to see it.
Do we have a price in mind?
The list price is going to be €2,200.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, thank you, Chris. Would you mind putting it through its paces for us?
Yes, so here it is, and of course 61 keys here, all the top control as well. And the first thing we'll look at is just the multi-section here. So I'm set to single, and I can just use it as a single patch kind of generation instrument there. Just quickly run through as well. This is a particularly nice one if I remember. I do like that sound, sorry. This is the problem actually, when you're here at Superbooth and you're doing demo videos, you just kind of get into the moment and just start enjoying the instruments as well. But yeah, so we've got our standard single patches here, but then I've got my multi-control here. And when I go into the multi-mode, let's see where we go, over here, yeah. So now I've got the controls here. So this is a layered patch. And you can see here I'm actually controlling all of the voices there from both parts. If I want to start to sound design a little bit, I can just press the B and just control that aspect of the sound. Same again on the part A. So you've got kind of total control over both of those parts. Of course, we have a split point here as well. Standard split point is going to be C3, so anything below we can actually see on the voice here. We've got our part A and then part B. Once again, the controls here just to be able to access the synth engines. And then if we go into the dual mode, now if I go to part A, you'll see I'm playing part A independently. And now this is a completely separate, if you like, synthesizer than part B. So I can do my sound design, do my work that way as well. So this is our section here. If I press both of these together now, it's a little bit like a layer, but again, we're still able to address these 2 synthesizers kind of independently. It's really kind of neat if you've got a sequencer. I've got a Novation circuit here, two channels of MIDI sequencing, or pitched MIDI sequencing on here. So it's kind of an ideal combination. I can just kind of go to part A, hit record, play in, go to part B, which is set to MIDI channel 2. Now that's just going to record onto the second circuit track here, and so it's a very nice kind of system of being able to work with that. I mentioned earlier about the FM controls as well, and they're sitting here in the middle of the synth. And if I just go to a single and initialize that, there we go. We'll just go to a sine here. So here's the FM control, and this pot is basically oscillator 3 into oscillator 1. So the oscillator that is modulated is right by this particular pot. So here, it's just there straight away. This interestingly is a 3-stage pot. So it's basically a manual control if I want it to be, but equally if I move down to the mod envelope, notice the manual value hasn't changed. I go to mod envelope 2 here, and we'll just add a bit of that in there as well. So. And you can hear that modulation. Then if I go to the LFO control, and we'll go to LFO 2, just put a bit of wobble on there as well. So this pot here actually has 3 kind of distinct controls for the FM. But of course, if I want to go in and go even further modular, if you like, we can also do additional things inside the mod matrix. In fact, these 3 pots here, because we've got oscillator 1, oscillator 2, and oscillator 3, we can frequency modulate between all of the oscillators. If I did that in the mod matrix, that would actually take up potentially 9 slots in the mod matrix. So just these 3 pots here is a really powerful addition. I'll quickly show you the filter as well now. So again, initialize the patch. So here is our standard low pass, 12 dB, 24 dB. Band pass, of course, as well. And then a high pass. But then if I tap down, we go to this more option here, and that actually opens up a menu for me here. And now you can see all the various different filter combinations that we've got. So as I say, we split the 24 dB into 2 12 dB blocks. And now we can have low pass into high pass, I guess kind of a band pass, low pass into band pass, high pass into band pass, and then when we go past these little arrow symbols here, we go into a plus symbol, now we're in parallel. So now we have, low pass, high pass, parallel. And again, if I go to my separation control here, you can hear the 2 cutoffs there as well. One thing I do like as well, if I go into low pass, that's always a nice one, and we'll just get a bit of resonance on there. Just maybe drop the... So yeah, the new filter side on there is really powerful. And we've got a lot of things. I think it's 9 different configurations for the filter there as well. Other things that we've got, of course, we've got the parts, we've got the FM controls, but some other nice top panel controls. We've exposed all the arpeggiator controls, again, going into that performance kind of idea. And actually what's really quite nice is if I go to, let's go to blank multi here. Let's see, we'll go for, I don't know, this one anyway, but if I just, oh no, hang on, let's go. Actually, I think I might have a patch already. If you bear with me a second, I'll see if I can. There we go. So we've got 2 arpeggiators running here, but of course we've got 2 completely independent arpeggiations as well. So if I go to part A and say, let's change the rhythm, go to part B and change the rhythm as well. So we've got this ability to really create some quite interesting kind of almost generative sequencing stuff just by using the 2 arpeggiators together, and by having the rhythm pot control here as well. That's really quite easy to just dynamically change the pattern, the rhythmic pattern of that arpeggiator as well. So we've exposed the arpeggiator controls. We've got longer faders here as well now. So these are 60mm faders, so we've got a bit more resolution in terms of the envelope shaping control. One of my favourite things, the loop switch for the envelope, has made it onto the top panel here, so we can just switch it on and then we have looping envelopes. And then finally, yeah, we've got the LFO 3 and 4, which were added to the Peak synth on the 1.2 firmware update. But again, they were menu-based, because obviously we'd already built the hardware. But on this one, we've exposed those extra 2 LFOs. So, yeah, and then of course on the back here, we've got all the audio connectivity as well.